More than 20 years later, Spring Hill, Kansas is the same small town, holding the same secrets.
The farmer was in the middle of tilling his field when he spotted something that he was about to run over.
112, 102.
December 7th, 1996 is frozen in Frank Knight's mind. The day his 15-year-old daughter, Tawnya, told him she was going to a sleepover.
Give her a time to be home the next morning because she was very prompt on being home. That was the last I got to talk to her.
The next day, when she didn't come home, he didn't know what to do.
Something was really bad.
Tawnya grew up with her mom, but came to live in Kansas with her dad a few years earlier.
And I think she just wanted to change.
That December day she found out her daughter was missing, she was in shock. The Spring Hill police considered her a runaway.
Everybody thought she just went and lived with a friend in Olathe because she had a lot of friends in Olathe, and that's what everybody said, so nobody really worried about it that much.
Lori held out hope she'd show up at her door, but she never did. That hope ended 6 months later, to the day.
Major Smith estimates the remains are around 2 months old.
And we have no indication if it was a natural, accidental, homicide, or what.
The Johnson County coroner ruled her death a homicide.
How did the remains of a pretty teenager end up in a farm field miles from her home? 6 months after her disappearance, that's the question facing Metro Squad detectives.
It's a question they still face, a question that's haunted Frank and Lori for decades.
It rips your heart out because it's so hard to lose a child.
The Johnson County Sheriff's Department holds the case now and continue to follow up on leads. But Lori decided to try something different. She hired private investigator Jeff McDonald.
This is my opportunity to get in there and help somebody find out what's happened 20 years ago.
McDonald spent months diving into Tanya's files, talking to dozens of people, and looking at that night from a new perspective.
Tawnya was led to believe there was going to be a party. I can't find anybody who can say, I remember that night, I remember there was a party.
McDonald believes it was a lie, a fabrication by two people he calls the mastermind, a girlfriend of Tanya's and the Heavy, a boy he says had a crush on her.
Tawnya was gravitating towards her because she felt like she was one of the bad girls, and Tawnya wanted to have that edge to her.
But boys were gravitating towards Tawnya, especially one the mastermind liked.
It was almost a conflict between these two girls.
A conflict McDonald believes led to murder. McDonald learned the mastermind dropped off Tawnya at a boy's house that evening.
They weren't quite sure what she was doing there.
The boy's mom said she offered Tawnya a ride home, but she decided to walk around midnight. Police say Tawnya took this route to get home. McDonald believes she made a stop along the way at the graveyard. He says she was lured to the back of this graveyard, and he believes that she was killed right here. After that, he says he believes her body was thrown over this chain link fence. That's where she would be found months later in June of 1997.
Investigators say a Spring Hill teenager has been missing since December, but it's too soon to determine the age and gender of the person whose remains they are studying.
If they knew Tawnya, they ought to know she didn't deserve to wind up like this, and they can help make it easier. Because whoever did it doesn't need to be out there.
But they were out there, and McDonald doesn't believe they were far at all.
He's coming in with a different set of eyes, looking at the same evidence we've been looking at, and we appreciate that.
Once the original investigation started, both the so-called mastermind and the Heavy were interviewed. She was even polygraphed.
They gave an appearance as though they were concerned. They felt that there was a high amount of deception. When I watched it, she treated it as though it was kind of fun.
Do you think she's a psychopath?
It's a good question. I think there's evil. There's good and evil, and I think there's an element of evil that you and I don't understand.
But they were asking more questions about what the police were doing than anything. Yeah, it didn't really seem quite right. And they were the only two that ever come around.
Both maintain with investigators they had nothing to do with Tanya's murder, and maybe they didn't, but detectives believe someone out there knows.
We feel that there may be somebody in that group that has more information that they didn't come forward with, and we just urge them and encourage them to come forward and talk to us to help us close this case and bring the closure to the family that they deserve.
I just gotta keep believing that I'm gonna get justice.
I'd like to see him step forward and admit it. It's time. It's well past time.
Sheree Honeycutt, Fox 4 News.